Jonathan?
Oh, thank you, Keith, and thank you, uh, all three of you, for your really inspiring presentations. Keith, for your probably best download of the second volume of The Secret Doctrine I've ever heard. But at the same time, eh, eh, getting us to rededicate, putting it in the context of a rededication to what we're really all about. And thank you, Philip, for reminding us of how alive our universe is, and especially our Earth is, and about how really what was striking for me was the fact that human beings represent mind as one of the principles of Earth, which gives us such an incredible responsibility, actually, as you said. And for Miluka, for also just initiating us into just how alive this universe is and telling us about Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto and so forth. And just the magic of these planets and of being alive in this universe. And it occurred to me that the degree to which we can see nature and our Earth and the universe as sevenfold, and really see that, and really see that everything is incredibly alive, much more alive than we ever thought, that is proportionally the degree to which we find ourselves to be alive. It's an awakening of just by reviewing the living nature of the macrocosm, we awaken ourselves as the microcosm, as a universe within the macrocosm. So January 4th has to do with theosophically, with the spiritual DNA of who we are as mind beings. So theosophy is saying that we're connected to the universe, not only in the way that we are abstractly, in the way that we are at one with the Atman and therefore at one with everything, which is true, but it's also saying that we have this, that we are at one with the universe in that we have a duty to perform. We actually do live here. We actually are part of the system, and an incredible duty at that. We are mind beings. We are the mind of the universe in a very real sense. So in this context, given all this, the importance of the new year cannot be overestimated, and HPB takes pains to let us know in many of her articles how important the idea of the new year is. And she says that just as the color of each day can be colored by our thoughts, so can a whole year be affected in the same way. All of the world's cultures have agreed that this is the most potent time of the year to strike a certain keynote, to invoke a certain tonality that can reside throughout the year. Now, why is this? Well, we've heard them all. Days are now getting longer because of the advent of the winter solstice. We are closer than ever than normal in our elliptical orbit around the sun as an Earth, which is the perihelion. And also that the idea is that the astral is young and supple and strong. So it is the most malleable. And the astral does have to do with our thoughts, our habits, and our instincts, you could say. So, and that the fact that the astral is young and strong and malleable has to do with the possibility and the probability of success at this time of year for striking a keynote for the year. So not only are we working with cycles in the effort at New Year's resolution, but we are actually creating new cycles. Every thought that we think is a cause, which in turn repeats itself in the form of a new cycle. With every thought, we are not only shaping our habits, but also our instincts, as we said before. Now, the degree of intensity of our thoughts is a factor. And this has to do with the degree of the selflessness and the seriousness and the degree to which it is consecrated and dedicated to the larger whole and to humanity. At a certain point of intensity of thought, this concentration becomes a resolution. Many of our resolutions are quiet and silent. We don't even know that we've uttered them, but many of them are on purpose. And if they are instantiated at this time of the year, there is great promise. So our resolutions, we have many different words for this form of intensity of thought and seriousness, but also the words vows and commitment and promise come to mind. Now, Gandhi, he wrote in one of his periodicals about the ethics of vow taking. And what people do not know about Mohandas K. Gandhi is how much theosophy was actually very much central to his life. Beings like, he met H.P. Blavatsky, and she turned him on to the key to theosophy, and others around her, the Kitely brothers, or not brothers, but uncle and nephew, advised that he become a student of the Bhagavad Gita, which he did and took very, very seriously. Now, beings like Gandhi, what they do is they perform inner work on themselves in the service of humanity. HPB is implying that we can do that too. By means of vow taking, Gandhi sought to become as reliable, as he said, as the sun and the planets. Have you ever thought about how incredibly reliable the sun is and the planets and even the moons that go around the planets? What is that incredible vibration that keeps it all together? Now, all this has to do with the fact that there is one life. And this has to do with the idea of the higher self. By promising to do something, by making a commitment, a serious commitment, one is speaking to their own higher self. Because even if they tell others what their resolutions are, ultimately one is making this commitment to one's own higher self. The higher self is not separate from other people's higher self. Theosophically, the higher self of one person is the self of all creatures and of all life. So whenever I promise to do something, or anybody promises something to do something to anybody, whether it's a person or their own higher self, you're asking that person to be one's own witness. By invoking my higher self as my witness, this is very powerful and it's very inescapable, because there's a certain light that searches out one's very nature, and that light is one's own universal consciousness within. So now we are counseled theosophically in the writings of Crosby and elsewhere that it is ineffective to resolve to not do something. I won't do this, I won't do that. But it's incredibly effective to resolve that I will do something. By willing positively to do something, the phohatic fire of love and fearlessness is released. There's something magnetic and phohatic about each human being. Now, in all of these images that we've seen of the universe and the beautiful harmony of the spheres that Miluka showed us, it's not so hard to invoke this idea that the will has something to do with phohat, and there's something magnetic and phohat about each human being. So, as HPB points out in some of her articles, there's something magic also about the human will, which is the phohat in and through each person. Each person has a tremendous capability to use the will, which she says is the most effective of magic levers. And she counsels us, why not send unconditional wish of good luck to every being under the sun, including all those who may be our so-called enemies. And this, we would say, is the ultimate incarnation, as Keith pointed out, of the descent of the Dhyanis and the descent of the Kumaras within each human being.